At least so far, I cannot tell if Mishima is sticking with Callum's whole power set, like his ether gear from the fan submission when everything was going on. Mainly because like he's kept the name, the carburetor, but it's like a mist based power. I'm wondering if Mishima switched it because like atomization as a power this early would be really busted. I mean, maybe we don't really know if maybe it's part of it. Maybe his whole like misting things is like at the atomic level. Who really knows? I would assume that there's going to be some trick to this, considering this panel. I mean, Jin is like missing a good chunk of his body, and this is only to where it is right now in the chapter. There has to be a way, obviously, for him to deal with it, because otherwise, what is he just gonna die? I don't think so. I mean, I don't really think that's gonna happen to Jin, especially because I really like Jin. Jin's definitely one of my favorites in the series, and this isn't even a time for that. This isn't like if it was like built up to be some big sign off for Jin, like it was like, oh, his character, this is like the logical end or something. It's like, no, I mean, obviously there's no way he's gonna die here. This chapter is primarily gonna be a Jin backstory, Jin character thing, and leading up to the reveal of his overdrive. There's no way that it's not going to. I mean, I feel like it's bound to happen within this fight for a couple reasons. One, there's no way he's gonna die here. That'd be really weird. I would commend Mishima for being that shocking, but I'd be like sad because it would be like the biggest waste out of the whole crew, given that like Jin again is definitely my favorite out of the Eden Zero crews so far. I mean, obviously I like Shiki as well, but like Jin is, I mean, he's a cyborg space ninja. It's really hard to dislike him. And in this chapter, we obviously got a little bit of a flashback from him, as well as Clean, Self, whatever you want to call her. I'll probably go back to Self. I don't know what it is about Clean. I just don't like saying her name that way. But like, there was a moment of her in this chapter of her powers, obviously against her, but it was really good, I think, for a demonstration. And I'll get to that in a second. I've kind of rambled on a little bit too much about Jin and stuff, and like the meat of the chapter when I haven't talked about anything about the beginning, because like, we start out, yeah, Shiki's with Rebecca. They're just going around kind of like, he's like giving her a recap, obviously, that Witch has been taken by Shura, and she's like, why would he take Witch specifically? And he's like, I don't really know, but I know that he has like zero care for bots and anything, like any form of android machine like creature. He does not have any shred of care for. I'd be really curious if Shura ended up becoming friends with a robot or machine, would he eventually kind of learn to like them more, or would it just be in his head he only likes that one? Because at least so far, the way that it's been demonstrated is that Jin only, like when he likes a person, he actually treats them like a person, whereas like anybody else seems expendable to him. And I personally still think it's going to have to do this backstory and how he was raised with Nero and stuff. We're going to obviously wait until Shura's backstory before we can really get a hold on that whole kind of conversation. But after that, like, we just got a bunch of drones coming in, and a new gun form for HappyBot was pretty cool. I did like that, because that was one of the things that's, for at least for Rebecca, I was expecting to eventually happen, for her and HappyBot to eventually get different gun forms. And he gets like an assault rifle, pretty cool, just starts blasting them up, starts shooting all these drones. And I like seeing just like the general usage of her marksmanship, because obviously that's something that she is very well set with. And like, you had, I mean, Ellie was like in Rave Master. I mean, she was kind of lucky, whereas, I mean, she was lucky a little bit, but also like way more, I'd say, just she seemed to have like that, that crazy untapped power. But I mean, obviously Ethereum, but she didn't have anything really kind of like a heavy, nearly a focus, other than that she was kind of like airheaded, but it's still likable. Lucy being very smart and way more kind of clever, whereas Rebecca, obviously her thing is her marksmanship. So I always really enjoy seeing when the characters show off kind of like, one thing that they're really good at, like one thing for them. And like, Rebecca isn't that strong yet. Like, we know that she's still kind of getting a grasp on her ether gear and whatnot. But it was good to see in this chapter just, you know, a short display of it. Even if it was just a bunch of random drones, it was still a moment for her that was pretty cool. And obviously seeing a new gun form perhaps would be cool. I wonder if he could get like a rocket launcher form, or just like a plasma cannon. Just some real big energy weapon, a big fuck all bazooka type. And we see also what Wise is doing. We see a little bit more in Creed. We see Pino, and then they kind of meet up with like, Moscow and stuff. But the one person, like, I really want to hurry up and find out is what Justice is doing. I mean, that's going to be one of those back burner things, probably like up there with like Ziggy and Elsie, that we're not going to really see until things really rev up into like hectic mode. Well, then it focuses back onto like the main fight of this chapter, as well as I would assume is going to be the main thing for the next chapter, is the fight between Lyra and Callum versus Sylph and Jin. And one thing I will say, because the next chapter it's like called like Rutherford Win, obviously having something to do with either their family or the two of them. I would like to see a good moment for them. I still do not want Sylph to get overdrive in this next chapter. It's just, you know, TLDR. I don't want it to just kind of feel like everyone's getting too fast. I'm still kind of on Wise getting it. I felt like Wise should have got the ether lines, like extending out the body before he got to overdrive. We know that Homora's is a little weird because her ether lines are a sword. And, like, it forms a sword, so it's like I don't really know what hers would really be unless it's just like the sword is extending out all crazy like. But Jin absolutely should have overdrive. I don't think there's really any logical reason why he wouldn't, unless it's explained that for some reason he wasn't training as hard as everybody else. We know he wasn't doing the whole thing with like restraints, but it's like he already was so close. We saw that during his fight with Shiki, during Belial Goer. That's like not even up for debate. It'd be really weird if he didn't have it. Like, she would have to give a really good explanation of why during those 35 days that Jin did not achieve overdrive, but both Homura and Wise did. So I really want to see it as well, because I feel like out of everybody in the main cast, Jin's overdrive is going to look the coolest. Shiki is badass, and I really like Wise's after Mishima added the cool, like, weird cords to his back. And Homura's is really nice too, but I feel like Jin's is going to be the coolest. I mentioned, I just envisioned in my head, you know, obviously like some really sick Wind Ninja, but also with like a big shuriken with like a tornado in it or something. Something just very straightforward badass. Like, you know that Mishima like looked at this guy and in his brain overdrive is like, I need to channel some Chad energy just for this form specifically. And I don't really know what else would really go for him. I feel like just being a badass Wind Ninja is the only thing that can really be the logical step forward for him and his powers. But during the fight, you just get like a general start out. Jin goes for like a wind attack. Callum and Lyra dodge. I like Lyra's moves. Like, she like throws out 3 sevens and calls them 3 of a kind. I thought that was pretty neat. I feel like, though, the 3 sevens, and it's not just because it's like Mishima doing sevens. I mean, like, the 7 thing is like more of a fairy tale thing than Mishima thing. But 777 being like the jackpot number, I feel like that should be like a way more powerful attack for Lyra. It's not anything crazy. Obviously, these are cards and not the same thing as like a jackpot. But I don't know. I really wish that was the case. But Sylph goes and steals the cards, like brings it to her wind. She does the whole thing of like, you know, her wind steals all and her brother's wind obstructs all. He goes in for an attack, and that's when we see right after he does a Sky Mech ninjutsu attack, and he goes and does his Windstorm Slash. You see Callum dodge, and he's also using Sky Mech ninjutsu. I didn't expect that at all, because I was thinking more towards the fan submission when the guy who made Callum submitted him having like an atomic power. I figured it was going to do something like that. It's just really surprising that he's also got the Sky Mech ninjutsu stuff. I'm guessing that when Mishima got the backstory of the character being also a mercenary and then having like kind of like a similar style to Jin, that he wanted to connect the two characters and not just have like aspects about them be a coincidence, because like, I don't know, I feel like it just would make more sense to have him be, like, some old rival rather than just some guy who's got, like, a similar setup than him with, like, being of some older, like, rich family and also being a mercenary. Clearly, these are two different characters, and this was a good way to connect them while also differing them, because now Callum's character is an old rival that Jin wasn't able to ever beat, which is really cool. I thought that was a really good way to implement him, and on top of that, it's a good way to make his character memorable. I like Balani, and I thought Nase was pretty cool, but their characters, at least so far, haven't done anything to make me kind of like remember them in the long run. Whereas this is obviously would be something that directly ties them to Jin. Like, and as I mentioned, Jin's really cool. I like Jin a lot. I think his character's badass. I like his design, I like his backstory. Relatively everything about Jin I think is really cool. But I did mention that the one thing about Sylph's wind that I did really like is when Lyra uses her flame cards, throws them, and they, you know, they go in the wind, but then she blows them up and it does damage. I thought that was really good because it's one of those things about people's powers when they're demonstrated and obviously shown to be like really, really kind of crazy good. And we did see her go against Homura, but Homura was able to figure out how to just outright counter her wind, and then Homura was just way more powerful than her. And like Homura would, there's no way that Lyra could really contend with Homura. Lyra seems way more of like a tricky fighter rather than Homura, who is like a straight up fighter. Like, you know, she's a swordswoman, so someone like Lyra probably wouldn't be that much of a challenge for her, just based on the style advantage that she would have. But she's throwing the cards, and obviously, like, a character who's got projectiles, like projectile weapons, like shooting at Sylph, the way that Sylph's kind of whole setup is. Obviously, if she's able to catch them and put them in her wind torrent and then redirect them into using them however she wants, that'd be, you know, you're gonna get screwed over. So somebody like Lyra, who figured out, oh, you know, she throws them in, and even if they're in the whole wind stream, if she just blows them up right there, really smart. I actually like that because, like I said, she doesn't seem, at least so far, to be a like the same style of like big close melee fighter, whereas clearly she's a range kind of tactical fighter. I'm guessing she's gonna have way more different card attacks than just like she got her 3 of a kind. She's got, you know, the whole flame card. She's probably gonna have some really neat, tricky ones. I'm hoping that we see whatever her trump card is, because that's one of those things that I'll always hope like is a base planned for a character who is gonna get their possibly only big fight, because we don't know if the Oceans are gonna get a second fight for any of them. This could easily be the only fights for Callum and Lyra, so I would hope that we see whatever their trump cards are, whatever their best move is during this. I'm guessing this, though, at the end of the chapter is Callum's best move, but we don't know if Lyra's going to have any crazy trump card. I wonder what hers would even be. Like, just because obviously the weird card powers. Maybe just some, like, weird multi-element combo attack. That'd be kind of cool. Like, what if, like, each card, because, you know, you have cards and there's, like, 4 kinds, so it's like, what, Heart, Spade, Clover, Diamond. So you could have like a different attribute for each one, have 4 different attributes. That'd be kind of cool. It would remind me a lot of Witch and her things, just from the idea of utilizing multiple attributes, but obviously like it's not the exact same. It's just similar in the general idea of having these multiple sets and then being able to utilize and move between each of them. And then we get back to the backstory of Jin. Now, this was cool because this was something I didn't see coming at all. I didn't think that their characters were going to connect like this, and I do really like what Mishima is doing with these moments for their characters in right now. Because with Wise, it was way more on Wise having a really cool fight, being a badass, showing up his stuff, Homura as well, whereas clearly this has gotten into personal backstory stuff with Jin. And I did realize, like, it says on the panel, like, they're on Gilst 9 years prior, which is really weird, because, like, Gilst seemingly being somewhat fair was really surprising. Like, you figured it would be way more, like way more aggressive. You got some people just at, like, a dojo seeing pretty cool, so it's not as, at least at the time, not as cutthroat as one would expect. But Mishima, I don't know, maybe his plan is just to make him a little bit more tame, and then Draken Joe showed up, and then it got really crazy, maybe? Who really knows? But there's like some parts where just some random guys are picking on Jin for having his cyborg parts, and Then Callum comes in. He's like, just ignore him, whatever. If they're gonna do it, if you need someone to fight, you can fight me anytime. And there was a moment where it looked like Jin was gonna unleash on them because they were, said some words that were starting to get close to his sister, and he wasn't gonna stand for that. Then they just go to some general moves, like the dude's just doing some missed attacks, doing some just multi-hit combos on Jin. And it's the move at the end I really want to know about, because he's saying that. He's like saying, oh, this is an Imperial attack. And I'm wondering if that means like just the idea of like how he's saying it, like an Imperial attack, obviously like having to do something with the Empire he's part of, with Nero's Empire. And he even calls it Empire, or Empire Ether, which again would allude back to that. So it makes me wonder, like, are other characters going to be capable of this? And then how exactly is it going to work? Is it an illusion? Is it messing with the ether in his body? I don't think it's messing with his ether in his body, because we know that was a thing that Nase and Lyra both did. It's not something directly that I think that Callum is going to be able to do, just based off of the way this chapter ends. Because I don't think that this is going to be direct on Jin. Like, I don't know if this is actually happening to him. I feel like it's an illusion. Like, the idea of mist, like he's doing some form of mind messing things. Like, he's messing with his head to the point where he thinks this is happening. And then maybe Jin will break the illusion next chapter. Because, like, one thing I do have, obviously, on Mishima is I haven't read his other series. And I do know Mistagun is a character who also used illusions. So maybe that's what Mishima is, doing a little nod at. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Either way, like, Wise, the next chapter I'm guessing is going to be Wise getting his overdrive, or at least building up to it. I don't know if there's going to be a third chapter to this fight. I'm guessing the next chapter will be the conclusion of it, but I still can't wait to see it. It's funny because, like I mentioned, like, oh yeah, I feel like he's got to get his overdrive and then he'll win. And it's just in a way that's similar to what was going on with Homura and Wise. But these are those fights where I'm like, I'm perfectly okay with it. I really want to see these guys battle, and I really want to see the overdrives of of the main cast. And Jin, like I said, Homura and Jin were the ones I was like, I think they definitely have to have it, just like in an idea of going into it. And then Homura showing it, I was like, okay, well then Jin has to have it. And then we got Wise, and I'm like, I was surprised by that. I'm still indifferent on that. I would have preferred the extended ether lines before overdrive, but Jin absolutely has to get it. Like, Jin not having overdrive after this chapter, or sorry, not in the next chapter, I'm hoping, but like Jin not having overdrive when Homura and Wise both got overdrive, two people who I'm very confident he would defeat. Wise is a little bit of a hard kind of question, because Wise's power, obviously, Jin's a machine, but I feel like Jin would just be a way faster and more tactical and agile fighter for Wise to fight. But there's no way that he would be behind Wise, I think, with his ether gear control. I don't think that his level of display at where he was at already would fall behind Wise, because at the point where Wise would get to the ether line extensions and then get to overdrive, Jin would have had to make almost no progress, which I don't know. I don't think that would be the case. Anyway, it's a good chapter, pretty solid. Obviously, like I said, I like Jin a lot, so like getting a Jin focused chapter was really cool. I'm curious, really curious rather, if Mishima is going to stick with the whole atomization power of Callum, or if he's fully switched it into this mist power. I mean, either way, like, even for the guy who made him, it'd be a little weird that he, it'd be a little odd seeing him switch it power. But I mean, like, he's integrated Callum so like into the story out of the oceans. He's integrated Callum into the story the best and the most, because he's directly tied to a main cast member's backstory. He's not somebody he ran into across the way, like, oh, this is a mercenary I once met on a mission. It's like, no, this is somebody that was a rival of his while he was learning how to do Sky Mech Ninjutsu. So Callum will be a very memorable character for anybody who really likes Jin, because he's integral to his backstory. He's a very key person. Not the same like level as like Mueller is, but definitely like somebody who you're going to directly think about. Oh yeah, his old rival who he fought in the arc, especially in the arc if we get overdrive the next chapter. So that'll really tie him into a memorable character in the series. But anyway, other than that though, comment below. Tell me what your thoughts are about this chapter, and I really appreciate the thumbs up the video, put in the like button, subscribe, and check out my other videos. But other than that, appreciate all you subscribe. Thank you all for listening. Bye.